Hello and welcome to my COVID lockdown sketchbook tour. I'm using a Hannemhle Toned watercolour sketchbook. First, I'm going to do a complete flip through, followed by descriptions of some of the contents. Let's go. Whenever I get a new sketchbook, the first thing is to test the paper, see how it performs. This time I'm working with some Derwent watercolour pencils, a new medium for me. But I find that the paper takes the colour and the water really well. And here you can see my chops. These are the rubber stamps that I use to sign my work. Here you see the year of the rat, and this is the stamp, which is my signature. You will have seen that I do a lot of writing. I have a conversation with my book regularly, and sometimes my sketching starts with a conversation. Between lockdowns, I managed to get a little trip down to Saigon, and I bought this interesting little pocket set of gouache paints. Here I am experimenting with the way that they blend. Just for fun, I bought some cheap little preppy pens with red and green ink. It's brought the writing to life. I think it's fun. And here I'm doing a sketch inspired by David Hockney, using the preppy pens as my main medium with some water. On this page, I'm continuing to play with the gouache paints, plus some gorgeous metallic watercolour paints, and see how they blend together, and some ideas begin to emerge. This page shows ideas for compositions. It's a kind of a shorthand that I use as I'm working through some ideas. At the bottom of my garden is the harbour, which is full of wooden fishing boats. This one, at the end of a bamboo jetty, was the subject of an hour's sketching with two young friends of mine. Here are lots more of my little shorthand rectangles of compositions and ideas for painting. This developed into a series of wall hangings which went into a local art space. The lockdown brought a lot of emotional turmoil for everybody, and here I'm having a conversation with my sketchbook about some of the aspects I'm finding most difficult. Here there's been a flood, there's a big typhoon on the way. I spent a day drinking too much with a friend, followed by a period of lassitude, and resolved it with a birthday celebration, a day of beauty, and some therapy with an acupuncturist. On October 27th, Typhoon Malawi hit. Everything was blown sideways. I was worried that things might come through my glass doors. The tide was going out, but the boats were getting higher and higher in the flood. I was worried. It created great uncertainty. I've never lived through a storm like this before. And I started to analyse what uncertainty is and wondered, does it have a colour? What colours would look like uncertainty? Outside my window is a 60-foot high old palm tree that was blown sideways for 8 solid hours. I tried to describe it with words and with paint. I ran out of words, out of vocabulary. I started making up words to try and describe how this thing felt. I've never experienced weather like this in my life before. I'm experimenting with pattern and colour again. These 3 symbols developed eventually into a 1 metre by 1.5 metre hanging with acrylics and metallics. It's early November and yet another storm is coming through. Typhoon Vamco hit us hard. I'm playing now with some new paints from India, and again pattern and words and textures. I borrow from a poem about November to talk about this storm. Here I've got some new metallics from Sennelier. I was a bit disappointed by these, and they didn't work very well on this watercolour paper. Lockdown is lifted and we're able to get out and about with the sketching group. And we visit some of the local cafes, do some sketching, talk about our experiences in lockdown. We're mainly doing interiors because the weather is wet in November. Here I'm sheltering under a canopy to capture some of the old buildings in the World Heritage town I live in. And working with textures. This texture here has become a kind of a signature of mine. I use it a lot in every style of painting now. I've got some new paints and I'm testing the colours. This is the fan set that I got from Saigon. Gorgeous colours. I've really become very impressed. I use one of my favourite brushes to do this swatch. I'm also designing my new chop for the Year of the Buffalo. This never got made, unfortunately. I never got down to Saigon again to get my buffalo chop made. So I had to be a bit inventive for that year. I had a trip up to the chilly north of Vietnam, and this is my sketch of the winter rice field. On the way back, I called into Hue and visited the Le Ba Dang memory space. This has to be absolutely one of the best art museums in Vietnam. Of course, COVID took away all my customers, and Hoi An is a very quiet place. So I brought the gallery back home to my house by the harbour. I call it now the March Harbour Gallery. And out and about, sketching with the sketching group again, experimenting with more techniques. Here I am using some Raffine watercolour pencils. They're new. And this is a sketch of my old friend Jean, who is also deeply engrossed. This beautiful old cafe in the old town has boats and a silk weaving loom as part of the interior decor. We went out on a boat trip. It's the Lunar New Year and everything is decorated with yellow chrysanthemums, including the boats. This is an interesting sketch. This is a very narrow little cafe, very tight space. And so I chose a chair in the middle and turned around and around, getting each perspective until I produced this long drawing. You can see some of the lines have become curved by using this technique. The Lunar New Year holiday continues. People tie red ribbons in the trees. And here we see a temple peeking over a high wall near the market. We went down to the lighthouse. I love going down there. And behind the lighthouse there's a beach where fishermen rest in the heat of the day under a canopy they slung through the branches. We're nearing the end of the book now. I'm in lockdown again, and I decided to do an online course. It's never too late to learn after all. And I found Tracy Verdugo. She taught me how to use stencils and prints and bold brush strokes, mix ink, watercolour and pastels to produce abstract effects. I really enjoyed it. It took me to a place I'd never been before. She has a great style. Here I included a Vietnamese stamp as some collage to add to all the other techniques. That was a lot of fun, thanks Tracy, and a nice way to end my sketchbook tour. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my first sketchbook tour. Give me a thumbs up if you did. See you again soon.